What are you? Some kind of doomsday machine, boy? Well, we got a cage strong enough to hold an animal like you here.
Captain, would you enlighten the sheriff, please?
Yes, sir. J.W., let me have a word with you. J.W., now this fellow's from London, England. He's an Englishman working in cooperation with our boys, a sort of secret agent.
Secret agent? On whose side?
Welcome to Bowties, as sometimes called myself, Ashley and Ed. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Ash. It's been a 3-week break, and we are back.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And James as well. We're joined by James. Good evening, James.
Good evening, chaps. How are we?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Now, let me just think. Is it 51 years ago today, to the day, that Live and Let Die was released in the cinema?
Wow.
Now, I'm not Bob Michelle. I suppose better talk about Live and Let Die. Oh, I've given it away.
Everything you've ever loved in a Bond film. More thrills, more excitement, more chills, and more. Roger Moore as James Bond 007 in Live and Let Die. Miss the boat, or you'll miss the most exciting Bond film of all. Live and Let Die.
Well, gents, I think we've talked about Bond a lot in the past, and I think we've all come to the consensus. No, we haven't actually. James is on the fence. Stroke Timothy Dalton. I think me and you, Ed, got to say that Roger's our favourite, isn't he? I mean, Timothy is probably. I love him for different reasons, but I think Roger just pips him because of two films: Octopussy, which we've already covered, which is fantastic, and then this one. So obviously, I was too young to watch this in the cinema, but we would have been. But we've seen it lots of times since, and actually. Live and Let Die holds the record for being the most watched film ever on terrestrial TV when it was broadcast in 1980, I think. Probably one Christmas. So for those people that don't like Roger Moore and say he's not a very good actor, put that in your pipe and smoke it, eh?
Absolutely, yeah.
Number one viewed film ever. So there we are. So, lads, come on now, Ed. We sort of like, what should we do? What should we do? And Ed was like, and I said, Live and Let Die. And I think Ed thought for all about 0.00007 seconds and went, yes, let's do that. James, I know we're going to talk about it, but your gut instinct, prior to watching it this week, how do you feel about Live and Let Die?
Well, do you know what? I'm going to go last, I think, tonight, because I went into it with one very, very, very strong opinion and came away feeling somewhat differently than I expected. But I'm going to let Ed heap praise on it first, and then I will come
in. Okay. I don't actually know what to make of that, so we'll see where we go with that one. So, Ed, do you want to go first, or shall I go first?
Go on, you go first, Ash. It's one of your favourites, so you go first.
It is, yeah. To be fair, I watched this film so many times when I was a child. I think that's probably because my dad's probably one of my dad's favourite Bond films because he loved Roger Moore. Because Roger just took it in a different direction from, the very first film, really. He's so slick and suave in it. Taking the mickey a little bit because, let's be honest, he's not like the most athletic. That said, That said, I know he always says, "Oh, I don't do my own stunts and stuff," but there are some parts in, like, say, the speedboat scenes. You know, it definitely is him. I mean, it was him. But then again, you know, if he couldn't do them in this first outing, then when could he do his own stunts? I suppose, to be fair, because by the time he got to the end, he was like ready to get his bus pass, probably. So we'll give him that. So we'll give him that. So there's some cracking pieces there. I watched it recently, and I didn't realize how much I think. I mean, I watched it probably last week, and I don't think, you know, he does like a good few cigars in this film, which actually is very much a personal Roger thing, because Roger loves his cigars literally whenever, when, probably not so much in his later life, I guess, because everyone would be like health warnings and what have you. But back in the day, I think he used to probably chain smoke cigars, probably. So he used to love it. I think it's got a fantastic look to it. I love the story. I like the voodoo side of things. Bit of a departure from the previous ones. Good to have a nice new Bond who's quite different, nice and slick. Very much about the ladies and the dress. I mean, Roger, he's even got a reversible suit in this. Yeah, when he paraglides onto the mountain, gets off, pulls off his slacks. He's got a nice little cream beigey pair of slacks underneath, and then he turns his jacket inside out. I mean, the man, he's a legend. Who else could do that and pull off both colours?
Nobody could pull it off. Nobody, just Rog.
He's there womanizing pretty much from day one, trying to trick Solitaire with a pack of stacked cards in his favor. It's all happening really. You got some amazing like the speedboat scene is fantastic, great chase there. You got Sheriff J.W. Pepper. First time we see him. I mean, only 2 outings, but he was there as a bit of a light relief. And he's fantastic in it as well. Some of the stuff that he comes out with. We got ourselves a regular Ben Hur down here.
Yeah.
And
yeah, dear God.
And the other one when he's trying to arrest the guy. I want 10 fingers on the fender. So stuff like that, you know. You got Mr. Big, Mr. Kananga, which, to be fair, you can see that coming a mile off. I don't think you need to really know. I mean, if you haven't seen Live and Let Die, I don't know where you've been, but yeah, to know they're one and the same. Some great stunts, crocodiles, a lot of jeopardy. Great bus stunt, undertaken by the chief driving instructor from London Transport. There we are. Yeah, bit of fact there for you. What else can I say about it? It's just Roger Moore, isn't it? It's fantastic. The soundtrack's really good. It's not John Barry. It's one of Paul McCartney's crew, really, isn't it? Who he used to work with. What was his name?
George Martin.
Yeah. And Live and Let Die is fantastic. Though a little bit of tidbit, you know, that the actual person who was commissioned, who was hired to do the song, not write it but perform it, is actually in the film. She actually sings it in the cabaret thing. She was originally meant to be singing it. She went to do it, but because Broccoli and that didn't think Paul McCartney was actually going to perform it, they just thought he was going to write it. Yeah. So that version that you get in like the cabaret bar is actually what they envisaged was going to be the titles. Now, not taking it away from her. Great rendition, but I do think Paul McCartney's was rather marvelous.
When you were young and your heart was an open book, oh, you used to say, live and let live.
So there's just lots of things going for it. Ridiculous things. Do you know one of the things I used to really like when I was a kid was, you know, Roger's looking pretty slick towards the end as well when he's all in black with his little holster, and then when he gets tied up and you know, they take Kananga takes a knife to him and slices him, and Roger doesn't even flinch because he's James Bloody Bond.
try something in an even simpler vein.
On the contrary, Mr. Bond, I think you'll find those wounds quite fatal.
Yeah. I'm James Bond. And he's just
Very good.
Yeah, he's just very suave about it, isn't he? I mean, I just like the little those things. It's just a totally different direction. It's like when he first meets him in the, Teehee bends his gun, and then Roger sort of just holds it by his tips and then just drops it in the bin. It seems stuff like that.
Funny how the least little thing amuses him.
And it's just, yeah, Rogers Bond's not scared of anything. The only thing I would say I've got a slight quibble with is towards the end when you feel like the film's kind of over and you think, oh, and then Teehee, you see Teehee's claw come out from the bag. You know, oh, there's still another henchman for him to dispatch yet, and he comes through. Now at this stage, I don't know what was going through James Bond's mind when he thought he could deflect and defeat Teehee by just flicking a pack of cards at him. He goes, yeah, I'm not sure that was the best one, but yeah, no, really good, and I just love all of it. What's he got? I mean, gadget wise, he hasn't got a lot of gadgets. He's very much on his own metal, really, and but he's got his watch. So yeah, what's not to like? Little facts about it. I don't know. I'll probably put loads of facts up, but I mean, Bernard Lee wasn't nearly in this one. In fact, he was nearly replaced with Kenneth Moore, apparently. Not sure how that would have worked. It's probably the first time we see Rogers Bond's house. Very nice too. Bit of a
it's the first time since Doctor No, wasn't it? We'd seen. Is it a house? Is it a flat? I don't know. I can't really tell. I always thought it was a flat, but it looks like there's an there's an outdoors. So.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could be. Well, no, because they enter it from the ground floor, don't they? I don't, unless there was like. Well,
is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
we won't let that be the point the film falls down. So
no, I mean it's a bit of a strange setup, isn't it? Because even from outside, the whole thing looks like it's on the same floor, but you have to go up about 3 or 4 steps to get into the bedroom. Yeah, and then you go down 3 or 4 steps to get back into the kitchen. Pointless, but there we are. What can I say? I could probably go on a bit more, but actually, I'm sure you guys are going to cover it off. So, with that in mind, you can probably tell it's a great one for me. I've actually, just as we're talking, I've got it on in the background as well. And at the moment, Roger has just been dropped off on the little. How can I put it? Let's start this again. Well, he's on the rock, shall we say? He's retracted the bridge back in. And Roger's now contemplating whether he can beat a crocodile with a Parker pen.
There are 2 ways to disable a crocodile, you know.
I don't suppose you care to share that information with me?
Well, one way is to take a pencil and jam it in the depression hole behind his eye.
And the other?
Oh, the other's twice as simple. You just put your hand in his mouth and pull his teeth out.
Anyway, and only Roger could think that one through. Everyone else be going, "Oh, it's over." No, not Roger.
Not Roger.
No, not Roger. The man has so much luck on his side that 5 crocodiles decided to line up for him to jump over. But there we are. Performed by Ross Kananga himself, the actual person who owned the crocodile farm. Apparently, they tied the crocodiles down by their legs. Logistically, I don't know how you would even go about that. How would you say so? You can say to a crocodile, "Come over here." Honestly, yeah, I'm not going to do anything. And then you'd have to sedate them, surely.
Oh God!
Sedate them, tie them down, And then but he did it. It's about 5-6 takes. The video's on the outtakes, or not the outtakes, on DVD stuff. So I'll put it on here.
As he's about to jump, the crocodiles all do this because they're saying, "Here comes that guy again." I mean, they'd seen the act twice, and so they're waiting for him to jump again.
Finally, on the afternoon of December the 31st, Roskananga defies death for a 5th time.
Ruined a really good pair of shoes. But as Roger says, the thing was, I decided to wear some crocodile shoes. Whilst he did that. Yeah, so
I thought it was a rather smart idea when we were doing wardrobe before we started the film. I said, well, why don't I have crocodile shoes?
Do you think this is a good idea, Guy? I think it's a beautiful idea.
And all of a sudden, one of the fake crocodiles starts moving straight for Roger and Julius.
Nasty beady eye is going like this.
And this thing is coming straight for Roger. Well, gunshots went off. Roskananga himself threw himself in.
Once they see some white flesh and are swimming, they can leap 20, 30 feet.
Everyone went crazy.
What a mistake. I had the skin of one of their cousins. They were out to get me.
it was quite an unlucky film. There was quite a few accidents on there, actually. I know there was some speedboat accidents and stuff. So they did think at one stage it was a bit cursed. Whether that was by the voodoo or not, who knows? But there we are. There we are. I've talked quite a lot for me. So on that bombshell, I'm going to hand over to Edward, who hopefully
thank you very much, Ash.
Who hopefully gives a good review, but we'll see.
Well, now then, when I was thinking about this the other night, I sent on the on our little group chat we have for Bow Ties, Live and Let Die is a blast. Roger Moore brings in a whole new energy to a tired franchise, and that says it all, really. I mean.
So, James, what are you going to say about? No, sorry, carry on. Yeah.
I mean, Diamonds Are Forever, it's sort of the most un-Connery film. It's almost like a dry run, a pilot for the direction the series would go into throughout the 70s. It's sort of camper, sillier. But I'd never thought of it before. But, you said in this film, Ash, that you get to a bit, you think the film's over, and then it carries on for another bit. They sort of did that in Diamonds Are Forever as well, when Bonds won, and then Mr. Winter, Mr. Kidd are the waiters.
Yeah.
So it's a similar sort of, almost similar rhythms. But no, it's a great one. It's not my favorite, but it's the one I remember most as a child watching and really, really enjoying. And I watched it last night for the first time in about 5 years, and it's got its problems. But it stands up. It'd be cruel to call it racist, but it is culturally inappropriate in lots of areas. It's culturally insensitive in a lot of areas, but it was the attitudes of the time. So we can't really do much about that because it's a damn fine adventure. Roger Moore, as you've said, Ash, you can't take, the man is flawless. You can't take away, he is James Bond. There are no other Bonds. There's just Sir Rog.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
I know who you are, what you are, and why you have come. You have made a mistake. You will not succeed.
Rather a sweeping statement, considering we've never met.
I mean, it's funny he's not in the pre-credits at all. I've forgotten that. I thought the scene where he's with Madeline Smith was in the pre-credits. It's funny how your mind plays tricks on you, but you're not introduced to Bond until after the credits have rolled, which is interesting. There's no cue.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
I've completely forgotten that. But no, it's one of those ones that just sticks in your mind as one of the classics that everyone can mention. I think if you mention Live and Let Die to a casual person that's not like us, they're going to say, "Oh, it's the one where he does the stepping zones over the crocodiles," or it's the one with, "Oh, that's the one with the speedboat chase," or "That's the one with the voodoo." So it's one of those ones that sort of like Goldfinger is in the public consciousness, and Roger Moore had big shoes to fill in Connery. I mean, Connery was whoa, the man, but you think anyone would be a fool to take over from him. They tried with Lazenby, it didn't quite work. Roger Moore had more of a cachet with the public than Lazenby ever did, and he hits the ground running, and he is James Bond instantly within seconds. He's everything I want from Bond. He's suave, sophisticated, camp, silly, but deadly as well. And the atmosphere of the film it's quite, once they call it horror, but it's a lot more edgy than a lot of the films where at the time, there's real world villainy in it rather than, your Doctor Evil who wants to take over the world with laser beams. There's 70s drug dealers who are dangerous, dangerous people. They don't play by anybody's rules. And you've got Felix Leiter as well. You've got David Hedison as Felix Leiter, and just the banter between him and Bond. As soon as he arrives in New York, Felix is having to bail him out because he's caused the car pilot. Then he has to bail him out when he's caused a pileup of all the boats in Louisiana. Yeah, you mentioned Sheriff J.W. Pepper. What a creation! I don't suppose, James, you read the books, haven't you? Is J.W. Pepper in the books, or is he purely a film creation?
I'm afraid he's a film creation, but
yeah,
my God, talk about a small character who over 2 films was in for about 20 minutes. What an impression on the public consciousness, and I mean, he was the template for all of those stereotypical Deep South sheriffs. I mean, you had was it Buford P. Justice from Smoking the Bandit and people like that. Superman 2, Clifton James played a similar character. There's always a Captain Mannering type. I suppose the American Deep South equivalent of a Captain Mannering, bit of a pompous, slightly insensitive, or shall we just say outright racist character. But again, in the best way those characters are presented, he is the butt of the joke. He's clearly a moron. But it's impossible not to like him. It's really, really hard. He's played with such charm. But yeah, I'm afraid it was not a literary creation.
Yeah,
I didn't think so.
Toby, I got me a regular Ben-Hur down here. That kind of dialogue you can't miss,
What are you? Some kind of doomsday machine, boy?
The best dialogue writer I've ever seen.
Now, Clifton James, who came from New York and doesn't remotely have a Southern accent, came down and he had a wonderful gut,
I wore padding. I wore an umpire suit because they're all very proud of their stomachs,
Put in there by Tom Mankiewicz for light relief, really. Because I suppose actually, but yeah, I think where he is, pardon the pun, peppered into it.
Very good.
Works well though, doesn't it? Because actually, it's quite a dark. Potentially, this could be seen as quite a dark film, really. And the soundtrack that goes along with it is quite dark as well. It sort of really works well with it.
It is, and I think they pitched that just right. I mean, if they played it a different way, if this was a Dalton film or a Daniel Craig film, or even probably a Brosnan film, that character wouldn't have been played for laughs. He would have been a nasty racist, and it would have been played very differently, and those scenes would have had a much different feel to them. But as it is, you've just got this fun, laughable figure. All the quotes, secret agent on whose side. I'm not going to attempt the accent, of course, but it's amazing. I love it.
The film itself, as you said, Ash, it's very, very dark. The subject matter, flooding the market with cheap heroin. It just probably destroys more lives than a megalomaniac billionaire building a base. It's real world crime that we unfortunately can see on the streets now. So we can see the impact of what people like that do to our communities and to people we know, rather than I'm going to build a gigantic laser and put a great base on the moon sort of villains. They're real nasty, nasty villains. Couple of things about this film. First of all, and I promise you it's not a negative. I promise you, Ash, I can see the look you're giving me. It's not a negative, but you've already touched on it. Even when was it first broadcast in the UK?
Well, I don't know whether it was well, it must. well, it must have been 1980 because
Okay.
it's got the highest viewing figures, so it wouldn't have got that if it was
okay. So
repeat,
I
would
first
it?
saw this in 1980, so I'd have been 8. Even as an 8-year-old, I couldn't work out why they couldn't see that Dr. Kananga and Mr. Big were the same person. It's like it's the same face.
Did you touch her?
When I see Kananga.
Right.
Quite revealing.
And secondly, and this is my anecdote about this film, I got the biggest telling off of my life ever from my parents for trying to copy Roger Moore, James Bond, with a can of deodorant and a match.
Oh,
I've tried that.
I can.
Not in your bathroom, I hope.
It was in a bathroom, and I can still feel my ears ringing now when I think of my mother.
Mm.
But I said, but I'm just trying to be James Bond. James Bond, burn my bloody house down. So, yeah.
What a bizarre scene that is, though, yeah? What a bizarre
Yeah.
scene that is. He walks around, basically, he orders room service. He knows room service is coming, so he's going to leave all his secret gadget stuff on the side, yeah? He gets in the bath, only then to, momentarily, seconds later, get back out of it, which obviously he has to then kill the snake. But it just seems a bit strange. Yeah, and I've never known any... I mean, is this a thing to get in the bath to have to have a shave? I don't know. Then the guy who's delivering room service is, I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, but I'm sure the Bond character should have met him or seen him a couple of times before, probably.
Yeah,
anyway.
he was driving the car that shot his driver.
And he doesn't seem to quite twig what's going on. But
And also his bungalow, which is bungalow 12, isn't it?
Yes.
Has an amazing trapdoor put in just for putting snakes in to kill secret agents.
Yeah, that was lucky. That was lucky.
That was really lucky.
Bungalow number 12, a bottle of Bollinger, slightly chilled, and 2 glasses, please.
First appearance of Bollinger in the series, though. It was always Dom Perignon before that.
And before I finish my bit hand over to young James, but Roger Moore's Bond was my favourite for the quips of the villains, and that line right at the end where Kananga explodes, he always did have an overinflated opinion of himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
you know
just
the other
brilliant.
Thing, what was the name of that woman? Who's the woman that he because he tries to get on a plane, doesn't he? Takes over driving.
Mrs. Bell.
Mrs. Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the end,
Same time tomorrow, Mrs. Bell?
when he totally destroyed the bloody plane. Yeah, so that was funny. There's just so many funny bits in there, little one-liners. Great start. Now I'm bated breath here. I'm waiting to see how this pans out. So we've got 2 out of 2. I'm wondering. Right, James, go on, tell us, mate. Go on, what are your thoughts?
Well, Live and Let Die is always one, as we've said. It's 6 of the consciousness. You always remember it as being really good. But when I went back and watched it, I feel it is better than the sum of its parts, we'll put it in those terms, and probably not as well structured as we like to think it is, or although we remember it is. And a lot of that is not really to do with the performances at all. I mean, Roger is perfect. I mean, the guy has absolutely nothing of the nerves about him at all. He goes into that film with the confidence of someone who knows, hey, if this doesn't work out, I'll do something else. It's really not a big thing for me. I think he said in his autobiography, it wasn't until he was driving to the premiere that he actually got nervous about it. So he just effortlessly steps into that role. Yafet Koto is so much charisma in his performance. I like the way, it's not that he degenerates, but he starts off very, very stoic and reserved, and by the end he's giggling, whether he's drunk because he's quaffing champagne at the end or whatever. But he's got big smiles on his face. He's giggling. He's having a laugh, and then he has his knife fight with him at the end. Jane Seymour, considering I think it was her first film role, wasn't it? Her first lead role. Handled that really, really, really well. She's probably still my favorite Bond girl. I think Solitaire. I think she's fantastic. She pulled that off absolutely with aplomb. All the supporting cast are great. Yes, it's an example of black exploitation cinema, and yes, looking back, there are things that you would probably wince at a little bit now, but probably nothing more than you would with Doctor No and the whole "Fetch My Shoes" line that really makes you cringe. And I think it's made better by the fact that so many stalwarts of black exploitation cinema were in that movie. Gloria Henry and Yaphet Kotto had come straight from filming across 110th Street, I think, to do this. And all of the supporting cast, Teehee, Baron Samedi, and everyone, they were all popping up in those things. So I think we can trust them as cast members to be comfortable with what they were doing. So it doesn't bother me too much. So I think it's structurally where I have the issue. I think I understand to an extent why they did it. After having gone with On Her Majesty's Secret Service with Lazenby and the very, very over-egged and very purposeful introduction to the new Bond in the pre-credit sequence. They've gone completely the other way and not done it at all. They've not mentioned it. He's been completely removed from it. And the first introduction from it, I have to say, it's probably the weakest introduction to any Bond actor. He's just there in bed. There's no dramatic build-up to it. He's simply just lying in bed with someone, and we don't, no indication of who they are, what it's all about. And I think that could have been handled in a more interesting way, just to reflect that yes, this is a new guy, but I kind of understand why they did it. And while yes, they were tweaking the way they presented it, and I think you said that it's very similar in tone to Diamonds Are Forever. And there's certain things that Roger wouldn't do. He never said shaken, not stirred, all the rest of it. And he put a bit more humor in there, but they were still writing it as Connery, I think. So I think it's probably not until The Spy Who Loved Me that Roger really found out, worked out what he wanted to do with the part. So there are elements that don't sit well with me for who Roger's Bond will become. I think the way he treats, I forgot her name, Gloria Henry's character, Rosie Carver. Yeah, I can imagine Connery's Bond treating her like that. Sleeps with her and then pulls a gun on her, and really quite stoked. You can see this woman is very distressed, stuck between a rock and a hard place. Somebody is going to kill her, and it's just a question of who. Roger's Bond, as he came to be, would have handled that, I think, in a much different way. And instead, he was quite brutal with her. The card, the stacked tarot card thing is kind of amusing, but essentially, he's pressuring this girl in a way that, again, Connery's Bond would do. I don't think Roger probably would. I think Roger's Bond is more like with BB Dolls, because actually she's a little bit on the young side. Perhaps I'd better not be pursuing this at the moment. You pop your clothes on, I'll buy you an ice cream and all that. So I'm a little uncomfortable with it.
But you do believe? I mean, really believe in the cards?
They have never lied to me.
Then they won't now. Pick one. You knew the answer before it was given. Strangely enough, somehow. So did I.
And then it's a stylistic choice. I mean, the playing cards have 007 written on the back. It's like, okay, you've taken from Diamonds Are Forever, you've taken Peter Frank's, having his wallet swapped. It's, you just killed James Bond. Everybody knows who James Bond is. Apparently, now they also know his code name and print tarot cards with it on it. So it annoys me just because I'm looking for it, and probably most people don't see it, but because I know it's there, I can't help but look. I think the boat chase is brilliant, but too long, because I think if you look at it in total, there's around 15 minutes there with Bond not actually in it or doing anything. So you've got the pre-credit sequence and then this huge chunk of action chase where he's not really involved. And I think it's like the underwater scenes in Thunderball. It's like, okay, we get the point. Can we tail it off and move on there? So, yeah, there are stylistic choices and editorial choices. I think you can tell as well where different versions of the script have been written and they haven't really very well been wedded together. I don't think it's at all clear who sends Bond the Queen of Cups card when he's in the hotel in the morning. I think the assumption is it's meant to be Solitaire. And I think it probably stems from an earlier version of the script, which would have been more to do with the book, where Solitaire is very much the kept woman who wants to be rescued. And she's trying to get Bond to come and rescue her. But then the script was obviously revised, rewritten. So that's not made explicit. And so it bugs me because I don't know who sent it. And if it was her who sent it, why does she then have that reaction at the airport when they put him on a plane and she hits him with a handbag? So that's just a little. I wish you'd tidied that up a little bit. But overall, yeah, the overall impression, it really sits in the memory. All the bits that we've talked about, the crocodile scene. If you're going to make the ultimate Bond film, compiled from all bits of every film, the crocodiles jump scene is going to be in it. I think it's tremendous. The whole cast are absolutely wonderful. I love the metaphysical twist. I mean, Baron Samedi, is he there literally or metaphorically at the end of the film? Is he actually sat on the front of that train, or is it just a metaphor for undying evil? Fascinating. Solitaire seems to get a few things right with a tarot reading. So are you trying to imply she did have powers, or was she just damn lucky? So I like that it touches on that without really going too far into it. So it's really, really good. And it's only because I went back intentionally to look with a critical eye that I realised there are bits of it that I'm not too keen on and that confuse me, and I wish it'd be done a little bit better. I think you're right. It is dark. I don't know if you've read Live and Let Die. It's certainly one of Fleming's more controversial books. I mean, I'm not going to mention it on here, but if you look up the title to chapter 2, it gives you an idea of what it's all about. And interestingly, in terms of the darkness of the film, the bits from License to Kill with Felix being fed to the sharks was taken from the book, from To Live and Let Die. That happened to Felix in the book, and the keelhaul sequence from For Your Eyes Only, where they were dragged behind the boat with Carol Bouquet, that's from the Fleming Live and Let Die story as well. So presumably at the time, those elements were thought to be too dark, dangerous, or whatever, and they took them out. But yeah, the source story is quite unpleasant in certain ways. But I think they make a really good venture, and I see it as more of a. I'm rambling now, but I see it as more of a building block to what Roger's Bond would become, rather than saying from the off it's perfect.
But Roger does a fantastic job, and he did. He was touted for being Bond back as far as Doctor No. I mean, let's be honest, he's actually older than Sean Connery anyway. I think he was about 3 years older than Sean Connery. So I think there was lots of times where he was considered for it. In fact, about 10 years prior to this, I think there's a thing where he does a skit on a TV show pretending to be Bond, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, the stars were aligned. I think that was always going to be in the same way that they say that they never had anybody who wanted to Bond as much as Pierce Brosnan. I think Roger, he was always destined to be Bond, and I think Pierce Brosnan was always destined to be Bond.
Yeah, they were friends, weren't they? I think he lived quite close by with Harry and Cubby. You knew them socially. They'd asked him back in '69 if he'd consider it, and he was tied up with the Saint or whatever. And I believe he turned down, once he knew Sean had definitely said no, he turned down the second series of The Persuaders so he would be available. And I know, yes, there are a lot of names always thrown in as the men who could have been Bond, but I think once Cubby, Harry, and Roger all knew at the same time, yeah, I'm available, it was always going to be him. And that's why he was able, I think, just to walk in with no pressure to it at all. He'd established his career. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I think the only stumbling block was broccoli and what have you. I think is totally 100% probably decided on Roger Moore. I think the only people that would have possibly have had their pennies worth in why there's other names on the radar is because the studio was involved as well, because they were franchising it, funding it to a certain extent, you know. So I think that's probably the only reason they probably said, "Listen, let's just not go with you gut feeling. Let's screen test a few people. There might be someone better." And it was like, "Yeah, let's do that," and then we'll go with Roger anyway, because he is James Bond. So with that in mind, then, okay, so let me just think. Favorite scenes. We'll just do a quick wrap up of favorite scenes. Probably throw those in. Then we're all going to give it 10 out of 10. Apart from no, we won't. But yeah, and then we'll do a little score on it. So, favorite scenes, Ed? Sort of things that stand out for you?
Well, do you know what? I really like the funeral bit at the beginning in the pre credits. That's really
Whose funeral is it? Yours.
Yeah, yours. And then when they start dancing down the street, and later on in the film, when they do the same thing, it's exactly the same people in exactly the same clothes. So I wonder if they filmed on the same day. Or they just recut bits in, but I never noticed that before last night. No, so there's the funeral bit. Obviously, I mean, I'm going to be really boring and say that the crocodiles, the boat chase, Baron Samedi sitting on the train at the end of it, always stuck in my mind. Rog with his flamethrower because of being told off massively by my mother, my wonderful mother, and rightly so, for nearly burning the house down. But there we go. There's just so many scenes. It's one of those Bond films. It's like with with Doctor Who. Oh, it's the one with the maggots. It's the one with those things in the string vests coming out of the sea. This is the James Bond film, the one with that is in the public consciousness. Equally, I would say with Goldfinger. It's one of those ones that the public really, you don't have to be a Bond film to know, oh, James Bond, yeah, he jumped over the crocodiles. Oh, James Bond, yeah, he was strapped to that thing with the laser gun up and going to get his bits. It's one of those sort of things that are just there. So it's a great film. I'll stop now.
You know, I can't actually add to that because he's just named all the best scenes. You know, I don't really think I can add to it apart from the fact that I still like the scene at the end where he's tied up and he's about to be loaded into the sharks and they cut him and he doesn't flinch. So that would be it for me. Now, I don't think you've got any more scenes to choose from, probably, James, but we're going to go on.
God, sounds like a challenge. But the ones that used to frighten me most, I just remember it now. Actually, the scarecrows used to terrify me with the guns in the mouth. But it was when Baron Samedi rose up from the grave and Bond, I don't know whether it's a robot or a model or whatever, he shot him. His head, top of his head came off, and his eyes went up. That terrified me first time I saw it, and it's always stayed with me. And again, I don't really understand what's that supposed to be. If it's a model, it's a bloody good one. So, just adds to the
mystique.
Say the mist. Yeah, it does. I mean, it goes down in the lift, and it's quite clearly a lab, and all the rest of it. So, it maybe takes away a little bit, but I just really enjoy that they have blended these elements of the supernatural without giving you an answer, without going overboard into it, or without saying, this is a Bond ghost story or any of that nonsense. It's just hinted at that maybe there's something a bit more going on, but probably not. And if Bond's going to touch on that kind of subject matter, it's the right way. It's the right way to do it. So that scene, I will always remember.
So on that bombshell, Ed, what are you going to give it out of 10?
Right, I'm going to give the film itself 7.5, but it's getting an extra 1 point for Sheriff J.W. Pepper, so it's 8.5.
Okay. Well, I looked at my IMDb to see what I rated it as. I think IMDb rated it as, let's have a quick look, 6 point something or other, 6.7 out of 10. That's out of 116,000 reviews. I rated it 10 out of 10, and I'm not changing that. So, yeah. I would have given Octopussy 11 out of 10, you see. So Octopussy still does pip it but only just. James is now going to give it 2. So James,
I love it. I really enjoy it. I'm just being pedantic because I look at it with a critical eye. I will give it 7.5.
Well, do you know what? I'll go with that. Ed's got his calculator out already.
Yeah,
I can
plus
see.
8.5 plus 7.5 divided by 3. No, that's not right. 10 plus 8.
We have this every time. Just guys, Ed is not even capable of using the calculator. Every week we have this. Right, James, Ed, I'll do it my bloody.
No, that's not right. That's not right.
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 Hang
10
on.
plus 8.5 plus 7.5 equals 26 divided by 3. 8.6.
Yeah, there we are.
Okay.
Well, I think I think Roger would take that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. Well, gents, that has been a pleasure. It's one of my favorite Bond films. I could watch it again and again. I think that's going to have to go in my top 5, along with Octopussy, Living Daylights, probably throw lights to kill in there. Maybe GoldenEye. Don't know. It changes a little bit sometimes, but Roger is the main man. He's the main man. And on that bombshell, goodbye. No, goodbye for me.
And it's goodbye for me.
And goodbye for me.